Do you think there are more or less pain-based trainers now?
Somebody just asked me that question a while back. Answer, of course, is who the heck knows? I would probably say it mirrors society and saying, are there more kind and compassionate politicians around now than there was 50 years ago or anything? I would like to say there's certainly been a dramatic improvement, but which has resulted in all those dogs' lives being saved over the past 50 years. But whether or not that comes in the numbers or and I'm processing out loud here, whether all those lives have been saved and all those dogs that are being trained with kindness and compassion and nonviolence now, it may just be of the quality of the few people that have showed up, or it may be the number of people. So the answer is I don't know, but I'd be curious about what your answer. Is it 50%, do you think?
I don't really know. I think there's probably less simply because there's more positive trainers, right? There in the aggregate, there's more people who are using positive reinforcement. It's interesting you make the correlation between kind, compassionate training and less euthanasia, and I agree with you, but pain trainers often say, I'm saving dogs' lives by using a prong collar because otherwise these people are going to bring the dog to the shelter and they're going to get euthanized. Now, my comeback would be, well, okay, so you're suppressing behavior and you're creating a potential aggression by using fear and pain-based approaches. So you're basically crossing your fingers saying, well, I hope it lasts. Whereas my camp is going to come in and say, look, we're not going to create any more fear, right? We're not going to create any more stress. So wherever it is now, that's our baseline. And we can only go down from here because we're not going to do anything to create more. So, as you said, it's impossible unless there was some sort of worldwide poll. But I would like to be optimistic and think I think there's more people using positive reward-based training and there's less people using punitive methods. But just in my area alone, I would say it's probably 50-50. And then you got the people in the middle, right? The balance trainers who, well, I got a choke chain with me, but I also have treats. I talked to a woman recently and she ended up hiring me, which was great. But she said that, the last trainer she worked with would pop the dog's neck and then give him a treat. And I was like, well, that's a pretty confusing message,
Well, and God bless dogs. They finally figure out, well, I'm just not going to do anything again because I don't know what's going to happen. So,
yeah, but then that's
yeah.
learned helplessness, right? The dog shuts down. And unfortunately, a lot of those pain trainers, they consider that a success because my firm belief is, and that this is from just years of taking intake from people, right? Because I have my private sessions give me about a 16-page behavior intake. A lot of these trainers, they just want the dog to stop jumping. They don't care what the other possible fallout is. They just consider it a success if the dog shuts down. And, to quote my first teacher, Jean Donaldson, she said, a lot of people just want doggy ambiance. They don't really want a dog. They just want the ambiance of a dog, and I'm sure you've seen that. Like somebody's complaining to you about a border collie and you're like, yeah, well, you got a working dog. What do you want? You might have to give them a couple jobs.
I don't know that the dog training world is a really good microcosm for life as far as our people evolving also. And there's always going to be people that say, this isn't for me because I want my dog. It's militaristic. And there's nothing you can do with that. What you can do is for the people or what we can do, just like anything else, you don't treat dogs any differently than you would like to be treated, the whole golden rule thing. And that's my answer to, well, I'm saving the dog's life. Well, why does the ends justify the means? And for some people, yes, it does. And for others, it doesn't. And all we can do is just do what we do and hope that little ripple of these examples affect people, especially the children.
What is your advice to people who want to enter into the profession of dog training?
There is a list on my site, and I'm sure you send the lists out too. Learn from a professional. First of all, I always tell people that if you want to learn something from somebody who not only knows the stuff, knows how to teach the stuff. listen to as many people as you can, see whether or not what they're saying to you resonates with you. But I would go online, and there are excellent schools. There are a ton of books out there, including mine, that will get you started. And if you get stuck, talk to a professional. And so anybody who's listening to this, if they contact you or contact me, I have the list of all of the major organizations, or 7 of them anyway, that list find a dog trainer. And then, so if you're really interested in that, learn from a professional. You can also, in the interim, go to your local shelters and help those dogs out. Learn how to walk a dog without having to jerk them. Learn how to care for a dog. Learn how to stand and talk to a dog with your body, where economy of motion is king. The less you say with your body, the more what you say when you do move counts. And so learn the basics by helping others. When I finished my kids program, Drayton, at the end of the thing, I said, no matter what you decide to do, just remember 3 things. And he said, whatever you do, be as kind and as compassionate and love what you do. Because if you love what you do, that's going to come out. Number 2, make sure it makes a contribution. Even if you're serving coffee, you're making a contribution, because here's a cup of coffee with a smile on your face. You can change the way people feel about their day, which means changing the way people feel about themselves, which there's that ripple effect again. So make sure it makes a contribution. You're helping the world out. And number 3, you got to make some money. Otherwise, you can't do the first 2. So no matter what you choose, and dog training is a great example of that. What a contribution you can make by helping dogs out, especially the dogs that are feeling really sensitive to unexpected touch, sound, and movement. You're building that dog's confidence. And how does that make you feel? What would you say to that question?
Well, I agree that you should definitely have some hands-on experience for anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and tutelage by people who've really, they've done their work. They know the stuff, right? And that's what I did. I was just basically assisted my ex-wife, who was a trainer. She went to the Academy for Dog Trainers, and I basically just assisted her for 5 years and volunteered at the shelter. The other thing I would remind people is, if you're really committed to dogs, you have to draw a line in the sand. And if you're gonna not use fear and pain, be ready to leave money on the table. And I tell people all the time, like, I leave thousands of dollars a year on the table because I won't use choke chains or shock collars. I just won't do it. And maybe it's hundreds, not thousands, but I'm figuring there's people who are out there searching, and they come across me and they're like, well, this guy isn't gonna, right? And I could just think in recent memory, in the last 3 or 4 months, there've been like 3 or 4 people, and I'm like, well, I can't work with you unless we switch the collar out, right? We can't use a prong collar. We have to use a harness. And I explain it, and I give them all the reasons why. And, if they didn't want to hire me, okay. And sometimes those people come back. They come back in 6 months, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to make the change because it's worse. I don't appreciate people who enter into this profession only to quit in 3 years. I really think that's a waste. I think you should have never even got involved. You should have just stayed, working at the shelter, whatever. Just because there's, if you get a business going and you're helping people and you're helping dogs, and then all of a sudden it's too hard one day or whatever, something, and you just quit. I just think that you should be in this for the long haul, and I mean, I know people have life happen to them, but I just don't think it's one of those things where, and I know there's burnout, which is a luxury. People ask me if I burn out, and I'm like, I don't have that luxury to burn out. And, my phrase is, I would walk 1,000 dogs in the rain before I ever filled out a resume. Like, the hardest day in dog training is still better than the worst day at a day job. Other than having to recommend euthanasia, or, there've been a couple of tough cases I've had where, the dog had to be put down. But, and that's what I say to people when they're in a bad mood. I go, well, did anybody get euthanized at your job today? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, at my job, I might have to give somebody really horrible news. You went to work and your boss was in a bad mood. Be thankful.
Dogs are a mirror, I believe, and I don't know where I heard that, but they're a mirror for who we are and the things that the accomplishments as far as our ethics and our morals go. Dogs say, yes, my heart has grown simply because of this dog. But they also are a reflection of, yeah, well, I got resentment and anger and all kinds of impatience that I see I have to work on that this dog is reflecting back to me. So I would modify a little bit in my mind. I modify a little bit what you said. I said, if your dog has taught you something and you're a horrible person working with a dog, get out of the business. Not everybody can do what we do. If somebody is wise enough to see, maybe this isn't for me, I would probably suggest they get out because the dogs are going to suffer because they resent the dogs even more. So
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You're absolutely right. And that's something that I didn't necessarily think about. But yeah, if you get in and you feel like it's not for you, I understand. And I guess that's my point. Like you should really, really know, like, I want to do this. Like I knew
yeah.
when I made the transition from being a professional musician going into being a dog trainer, I knew I was like, yeah, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. But I like freedom. I don't like having a boss. I don't like having a schedule. I like being my own boss. So I knew that that part right there would always keep me in. Like I'll do this till my last breath. I'm not
There
going
you
in.
go.
What is your advice to the reward-based training culture about all the division? Because there's a lot of trainers who are struggling right now with division amongst the ranks of positive trainers. There's a lot of infighting and so forth. What would be your advice?
I don't know what that's all about because I don't see it.
Oh,
So
okay.
give me an example.
Well, just generally, I mean, if you spend any time on social media, there's a lot of trainers who, are in the same camp, but they seem to just devolve into petty arguments. I mean, my answer is always, well, how is this serving dogs and large? Like, how is this serving dogs in the aggregate? How is this helping our culture? Right. I don't get into arguments with other dog trainers. I just state whatever I need to state and I move on. But it seems to be like, one of the things that's holding back dog training culture is that if the positive dog training community can't get along, it's not going to bode too well for all the other trainers who are using fear and pain based methods.
I think we've come full circle with this conversation because you brought up the word, and I really resonate with it. Is our job as dog trainers is to get out of the way of Mother Nature, and you do that by creating an environment where there is growth. If you're creating an environment that isn't healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, then get out of the environment. And so I would never go. The reason I'm not familiar with what you're saying is because I never visit any sites where people get snipey or anything else. Just like my environment doesn't include anybody in my life. I've been so blessed to have the friends that I did, that I do, and the family that I do, because nobody gets into that. We're fertilizing and watering and growing kindness and compassion. And if what I'm reading on the internet is saying, well, that doesn't sound that it fits my world, I don't go on it. So it was actually a surprise for you for when I read that in your the email that you sent me that even exists. I don't doubt it because that's life. Everybody wants to butt heads and they have their own reason for butting heads. And I said, but how does that help? As you mentioned, does it help what we're trying to do evolve? If somebody tells me, I'll give you a great advice that somebody gave me one time. Is that if somebody comes down on you, even if they're impolite, even if they're rude, listen to what their message is. Can you improve yourself? But don't get involved with the emotion about it. Just look at yourself, and if there's something that what that person is saying that you can improve yourself, Paul, then take it to heart and improve yourself. And if there isn't, just say, well, no, I don't agree with that person, but I'm not going to hang around the person.
Right.
I appreciate the universe telling me that I need to work on something, no matter how it's delivered. But then again, I don't have to deliver it. I don't have to listen to a person if there's any kind of malice or unkindness behind it. So create an environment where your dogs and you can live and thrive and be healthy. And that's the answer to life, I think, actually. No, I appreciate your thinking about me and having me on here because I think this promotes kindness and compassion in the world.